Okay, we're live now. Hi, I'm John Celestri, and welcome to my channel. This is my studio, and we're going to have two guests here, Daphne Lage and Jd Calderon. They've been a husband and wife that have been creating and working for many, many years, and I wanted to talk to them about the process and about how to keep their series alive. But before we start, I have a Indiegogo campaign that is about 9 days into it, and for those of you who really don't know who I am, John Celestri, John the Animator Guy. I animated Boba Fett in the Star Wars Holiday Special, many cartoons of the 1970s and 80s, included Filmation's He-Man, She-Ra, and Don Bluth's Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, and worked on Rock and Rule. And I have a Indiegogo campaign with my own characters, and I'm calling the series the campaign is John the Animator's Comics. So I've got a line of 2 lines of comics for young pre-12-year-olds from 4 to 12. And I've got the link to my Indiegogo campaign down in the descriptions, and so I hope that you'll give it a shot and take a look at it. So without further ado, we will bring in Daphne. Here she is. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay, there you go. That's Daphne Lage, and then her other. Oh, there he is.
How you doing?
Her other half, who is trying to settle, her other half is settling into the seat.
Yes.
So please introduce yourselves. Daphne, you go first, please.
Sure. My name is Daphne Lage, and I am the artist of the Funny Animal Fantasy comic Tall Tales, along with just doing general fantasy artwork, cartooning mostly. Tall Tales is a comic that me and JD work on together. The series spans more than 20 issues, and you can check out our work essentially at talltalesonline.com. That's Tales, Tails, online.com. And just to give everyone the heads up, I share the office with a parrot, and sometimes he goes off. So I'll try to keep his more obnoxious noises to a minimum.
Okay. JD,
All right.
introduce
How you
yourself.
doing? Yeah, my name is Jd Calderon, and I'm the writer and creator of Tall Tales, and I'm also the writer and creator of the Oswald Chronicles, which is currently running on Kickstarter. It's only got about 48 hours left, so those are the books that are actually being offered up.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to go check that out. And fortunately enough, I don't share an office space with that same parrot.
Yeah, for real.
Okay. Daphne, it's your parrot, or you inherited, or
Well,
what?
it's technically my sister's parrot that I watch. My sister lives in Rhode Island, so it's easier for me to have him here.
Understood. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, let's put. How long have you been working together?
Oh boy. What's the math on this?
33 years.
Maybe. Yeah, I think it was like,
Yeah.
when did we, like 85, 86? I think.
No, it'd have been 87.
87. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
87.
Because, 85. Yeah. So, yeah. So it would be 87.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then yeah, I know. And then it's like we didn't publish the first issue of Tall Tales, which was originally in an anthology. See, I'm sorry about that.
There you go.
An anthology that we put together with a bunch of our friends. We did that, 92?
Hold on.
Oh, okay. He might have it. Yeah, the initial math is always the hardest. So that was that was the first book that we self-published,
Mm-hmm.
and it was me, JD, and a bunch of other friends of ours that we did several stories in there.
Okay.
And right now, it's like Tall Tales is the only one in that book to survive this long.
Yeah, and it just, I think, what does it say? Oh, 93.
93. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, and that's the very first publication of Tall Tales.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the very first published issue.
Okay. So you've been working. What? Okay, I may have missed this. In how did you manage to get together to work on together? What was the thing? Because obviously, I mean, I don't know. Did you start working together first, or did you know each other and then start working together?
All right. If I can.
Okay, so you tell your side of this, because it's like,
I'll tell my side of the story.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
all right. So after high school, I got out. I had a friend of mine. He went to art and design. I went to a different school out here in Brooklyn, and he was like, "Come on over to my school, and I'll introduce you to some people." And he introduced me to another group of guys who ended up becoming my friends, and who didn't necessarily care for him, but they liked me. So I ended up hanging out with them. And one of them said, I was like, "I want to start a comic book company," and he was like, "No problem. I'll bring you the best people." Within that group was Daphne.
Yeah. So it was like what? It was my sophomore year in high school, I think it was. The second
sophomore
year.
or junior. It was one or the other.
Right, yeah. I don't quite, like I said, the math, it's been too long for me to keep the math straight.
Okay.
Yeah, and pretty much how that went was I was in homeroom, and I was showing off my portfolio to somebody else. They were looking through my portfolio, and he just happened to be looking over their shoulder. And he goes, "Oh, I know a guy who wants to do a comic, and he needs somebody who could draw animals like you do. It's like, do you want to come meet him and do a comic?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." That's normal, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how it started.
Okay.
He brought me all the top talent of his class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all right, now you've been working on. So JD, you had the first idea of Tall Tales, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then when did you buy into it as something that you wanted to do beyond just doing a job or just having a place to show your talent?
Pretty much when he showed me like all the like all the designs, because there was somebody else that he had doing the design work first originally.
Okay.
And they showed me all the designs, and it just caught me hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, sure, I'll be more than happy to work on this. And it was like really the first time that I've ever done a comic book. I was kind of dabbling at that point. I had just, I guess, like discovered more mainstream comics by that point. I'm kind of like a comics late bloomer, so it's like I really didn't discover like mainstream like funny animal comics or any mainstream really until I got to high school.
Okay.
So this was like the first time I was actually drawing it.
Mm-hmm.
But the story, it was a bit different back then, but it was enough to interest me to do it. And it's, and here we are.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. JD, when you started creating, when you had the idea for the series, okay,
Right.
we'll stay with Tall Tales. At what point did you start taking any suggestions from the artistic side, from the artist, to incorporate it? Where did you start? Because I know what it's like to have a vision on something, and then somebody else comes in and says, "Well, you know what? How about if you did so and so on body B?" And then before you know it, you're either loving it or you're saying, "This is the worst mistake I ever did."
Right.
So what happened?
Okay.
How did that work for you?
All right. So early on in the process with Tall Tales, I was working with somebody else.
Right.
And that friend who we worked together and we started getting the initial thing together, he had wanted me to make the book a little bit more jovial and fun. He wanted to make, I guess, make it a little bit more kid friendly or whatever.
Okay.
You know, whereas I wanted to make it a little bit more serious, like a little bit more serious fantasy adventure type of thing. So pretty much, and then so from that point on, I tried doing the jovial thing. I mean, there are a lot of jokes in it. Like I have one character in there who's kind of funny, you know, and he does his thing. But it's all in the dialogue, you know.
Right.
But from that point on, but he wanted me to bring in like a full jester type character and that whole thing, and I was like, no. And I'll be honest with you, I am a selfish man when it comes down to the story.
Okay.
I do not talk to any of my artists about anything that's going on in my. I write my scripts.
Yeah.
And I hand it to Daphne, and I walk away.
Okay.
But I write it the way I want it, and I give it to her. She does her end, and then pretty much like, but she doesn't show me layouts either. So she does what she does. I do what I do. I don't get to see it till it's lettered, and that's the only other point where I get to go in and say, well, you know, I need to touch up some of the dialogue, which annoys her, but hey.
Well, I do know. I mean, I know that process. You know, I mean, I know how that works. You know, you have someone that but the biggest thing is to be on the same wavelength, not the same page, but a different wavelength. Because if you're doing exactly the same thing, then you're not bringing something new to it. You know, you know that's and Daphne, you don't want to be just a wrist. You know, you're gonna
right, yeah. Well, the funny thing is, okay, so when I first, you see, because this is the thing, when I first saw the drawings, you know, the story was originally like Monty Python meets Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood. But the artwork, even back then, wasn't really matching the tone that they were trying to put out. So I was working on it, and it's like I remember like a couple of moments when I was like going, does this have to be that goofy? You know, it's like, does this really have to happen? Like, I don't know. It's like, this is kind of dopey, you know? But it was like little things like that. And then like, I don't know. It's like, I guess by saying that enough times, I guess it finally, like it clicked with him. That's like, oh, okay, I really don't need to do this original version of it. You know? So, so slowly the story began meshing into something we both wanted to really work on, as opposed to trying to force something that neither one of us was really that crazy about.
And that's what relationships are all about, because if you're going to have an artist and writer as a team, you know, you have to be on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
But you know, there at some point, there's sometimes it's the male and female approach, and this is how my wife and I wrote our crime fiction novels. You know, there's a certain thing where, you know, JD, maybe you have all your structure in terms of where you want to build all, you know, where the staircases go, how long, how big is the, you know, how many flights is it, how many stories is it, you know, how big is it, and so on and so forth. And there are certain things that, like, say, for my wife, Kathy, she would come and decorate the place. You know, I mean, there are certain elements. I mean, and that's basically what it is. Your words is the structure and of the whole thing. And Daphne, you are drawing and you are decorating those words.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And like he said, it's like, you know, I don't really like, it's very rare that I have any input on the script. Like, and even then it's like, it's more like, well, you know, I have a question about this, or I have a question about that. Like just recently we had an entire conversation about something that was supposed to be happening in the last 2 issues that I'm working on right now. And I had no idea how he envisioned it. So it's like, we kind of worked through it so that, like, yeah, it's like, okay, so he can imagine it and he can write it, but I still have to draw it, and I have to still understand what I'm drawing for it to come out. And even then, when I finally get to it, it's not going to be what he's expecting.
Right. Yeah. I've written for a bunch of people, a bunch of different artists, handed off scripts. I rarely, if ever, get back what I put down on paper, like exactly like what I'm envisioning. I never really get that back. But what I do get back is just as good, if not better. Okay. And usually it's better. You understand? I'm usually pleasantly surprised by what I'm getting, whether it be Daphne or the other people we've worked with over the years. So, I mean, so that's one of the things is like, even though I'm selfish in the fact that I don't take in any input into my scripts because I have a story I want to tell, and I mean, and it's pretty, like it's there. But whatever they want to do as far as design wise, however they lay out the pages, however they want to pace it, I leave that all to them. You understand? I don't do the whole panel 1, screen 1, 3/4 worm's eye, right. Fish eye lens, zoomed into the eyeball. No, I don't do that.
I could never. You sound more like you're writing an animation script, where you or a film script where you just say so and so and so. It's not a production script. The original, as you know, a regular a TV script or an animation script is a lot of description and then dialogue. Describing what's going on. And then what the dialogue is, and then you go. Now, do you do your dialogue and then go back in, or do you are you wait until the thing is all the panels, the pages are done, and then go in and do the dialogue?
No, I do a full description. I do all the dialogue, and the thing in Daphne, I'll tell you, one of the things that's very important to me is facial expressions.
Okay.
This person's laughing while they're talking, this person's smiling while they're talking, so on and so forth. Because back, I like to joke, back in the 90s, we had comics where everybody was, you'd have you'd had a word balloon around their head, right?
Happy face.
Exactly. They would be talking. It's like, really? That's not how it should be.
Yeah. Well, and that's the important thing about you, especially when you have a team, and when I do my scripts, I've got Post-it notes, and I start with beats, and then I'll put Post-it notes, and then start slapping. I'll do a 1-page beat, where I know how many pages. I say, okay, this is what's going on here, and then I'll start slapping stuff on top of it,
Right.
And then I do not do a full script. Until it's layered and layered and layered. I'll start thumbnailing, throwing that onto the sheets, and then I'll start divvying things up, and I'll anticipate say how much space there is. For example, when you have your when your scripts, and you keep it to about how many pages per story or per issue, however it is that you want to do.
Right. In that regard, is a little loose. We're a little fast and loose on it because being indie publishers, we're not stuck at just 20, 21 pages like Marvel and DC. Our books typically run 32 pages, and I tend to write towards that. But my philosophy has always been: is it falls where it falls. You understand? I got a beginning and I got an ending where I got a spot where I want to end this and begin the next issue, and it's going to go where it goes.
Before we go, I want to say hello to Pedro.
Hi, Pedro.
Hey, what's up,
hi,
Pedro?
because he's been there. He's been saying hi, and I don't want to ignore him. So,
Gotcha.
I want to acknowledge that he's here. So that's great. So yeah, when I'm doing it, I'm saying, okay, I have a limitation. I'm trying to keep to. Well, my stories have gone from 12 pages to 32 pages, depending upon how big the artwork should be in terms of the panel count. Sometimes, you've got, you can only you say, I need a splash page for this, or I need to divvy it up into 9 panels. I mean, there's a lot of different ways of looking at it, but but when I'm doing it, I don't really finish the script until I've done the rough pages, the rough thumbnails. Not the initial thumbnails, which is just an idea. I'll do full size thumbnail pages in very fast animated scroll,
Right.
and then I'll say, okay, I know where I'm going with this now, and I'll do it, same size, and then I blow it up for me to be able to start actually drawing it. And then I'll reduce, because I've got a small 8.5 by 11 scanner, an office scanner, and so I've worked out my pages so that I either have 3 rows or I have half pages, and then I can scan it in
Right. Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, I know. Like for myself, writing the scripts.
Yeah.
What I like to do is like what I did with the last arc.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote all 8 issues, right? It complete, and then and then what I would do is just from the end, I just start to edit. So I write straight, and then I just edit. So I put in whatever I want to put in. Then it's just going in there and chopping up and doing whatever I got to do. And then once that was completed, then I handed it off to Daphne.
Right. And then when he gives me the script, what I do is the first thing I do is I do a read through, and then I break up the scenes because the scenes are going to, I guess, going to dictate like how long I think that they should be. And then from there, I start to break them down even further, depending on the dialogue, the scene. It's like, there's some scenes where it's like, oh, this needs to be like a really large panel, so I'm going to have to, fit that in. This scene's, or like this scene, oh, this one only needs to be 1 page. But the one thing a couple of things that I keep in mind though, is how many pages I want the issue to be, and how our printer prints. Well, because there's a difference between printing a book digitally and printing it offset, and how many pages I can add just in case. Like this issue that I'm working on, so I just finished penciling out issue 6. So I was looking over issue 7. Well, 7 and 8, and I told JD that it's like, look, I think I'm going to have to stretch these books out further than 32 because there's a lot going on, and they might be really odd numbered books. And he goes, just do what you need to do. I mean, it's not like, because we digitally print, we use digital printers. It's not as, the page count isn't as big of a factor as it used to be.
Right.
So after actually issue 6 turned out to be 36 pages instead of 32. And then looking over the next couple of issues, I might have to do the same thing, just be able to allow scenes to breathe properly. Yeah. Which, if we were working for somebody, we wouldn't have that luxury at all. But because we're doing this ourselves, it's like, okay, I can stretch things out a bit.
Well, you're not doing you don't. I don't believe you have advertising in it, so therefore you can. So it's all story.
Yes.
So when you've got 32 pages, it's
32 pages.
It's kind of like a Dell book. The old Dell books, the old gold keys. That was. I mean, everything was that way. You didn't have. So you have the luxury of being able to do whatever you. Because and so it's more like a British or a Netflix or a British film show where you're not constrained to time.
Right.
It's not like you've got to hit. You don't. There's a hard station break here.
Right.
And so you can you can breathe and say, give it another minute. Give it another 3 minutes, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. So that's, so then, and then it's like, and then the thing is too, is that the thing that I have to go through that I really have to find in the script too, is all the dialogue. So then that way, I make sure all the faces are correct, what they're saying, because it's funny that he mentioned the gritted teeth from the 90s comics, because my pet peeve was reading comics and you have a panel of two people kissing and they have mountains of dialogue right next to them. It's like, I kind of think their mouths are a little bit busy for all this dialogue.
Well, that's crazy. People don't. Artists should take acting lessons. That's for. I mean, that's what we. I mean, and if you're going to place yourself into the role, and all writers, everybody, the storytelling is not just about the words and about the beats. It's like, what is the emotion? And if you're going to, give somebody stuff to do, understand how they're going to actually physically do it, because it's not radio, it's a visual format. And you got to present your characters doing interesting stuff and looking interesting on the same screen with each other. And just learning just basic film technique. I mean, in terms of placement of camera, how much is too much dialogue? I mean, that's another thing. Is it paring down dialogue? Okay.
I tend to be a little dialogue heavy. I come from the Dave Sim of a school of writing, where it's like, he's like, look, this is what Dave Sim said a long time ago. I'm paraphrasing. He said, look, you don't get punched in the face every day, but you do talk every day. Right? Yep. So, that's the thing. So that's my philosophy. It's like there's going to be those moments where there's a lot of dialogue. People do eventually get punched in the face and chopped up too. But, so it's a lot of swords involved.
There's a fine line between an info dump and kind of casual conversation.
Doing exposition, I mean, dialogue-wise, just saying this, just show it. Don't tell me what you're doing. I mean, as an animator, at least in the classic way, pair that, and also learning newspaper comic strip. I want to be a newspaper comic strip artist. So you have to pare that dialogue down, because you only have so much space. And even in the old days, you still had to keep it, unless you wanted people to be just bored out of their mind. But still, with animation, it's a visual, and with comic books, it's visual. And you can only see so much, take in so much information on a page, but it's crammed in. And you go, oh Lord, especially the small pages of comic books, the comic book pages today, there's less space than what it used to be. So,
I believe wholeheartedly in show don't tell, because I don't do it so much in Tall Tales, but in the Oswald Chronicles, I have a lot of stuff where it's like I have characters telling Oswald their story, right? But I don't, I make sure the artist, it gets illustrated out. It's not just like, they're just saying, oh yeah, I went to point A to point B, and it's all done in dialogue. No, I make sure it's illustrated out so that the people can see what actually happened. And I think it presents itself so much better.
It becomes a narration, but you still got the visualization of what's going on from that character's point of view. This is how they felt, and Okay. Now, with all the various characters, I mean, have you lost characters? How many characters have you kept? Adding to it. I mean, what is it that what has been your kill quotient, or I don't know. I don't know.
Whether this is more like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings. This is more Lord of the Rings than Game of Thrones.
Okay.
So we're not just picking characters off just for the lore.
The sake of picking them off. I mean, it happens, but it's it doesn't happen often because the main group is the main group and they have their stories that I'm going to tell. And it will happen again, but like it's there's a purpose to it, and it's not just a random, like because sometimes I've seen other authors talk about whether it be George R. R. Martin or even Robert Kirkman, where they just say, "Oh man, I ain't got nothing's going on here. I got to kill a character," and for me, that's the weakest excuse you can have as a writer to move your story along. If you can't move your story along without killing a character, for the sake of killing a character, you're doing something wrong. And both those guys are fantastic writers. You understand? But I've heard them both use that as ways to, I guess, to get themselves to push their narrative, to push their narrative further along.
Yeah.
But for me, I just got, I just do what I got to do, and if I have to knock somebody off, I knock them off.
Right, but it's not done for. I mean, that you can not killing a character doesn't mean that the story doesn't have drama.
Right.
So the idea that that's the only way to make people interested in a story is silly. Yeah. But at the same time, though, it's like JD does like introducing new characters.
There's a lot of them in Tall Tales.
Yeah. Well, what about the in your Oswald?
Oh yeah, because all right, in Oswald's a little. It's different because what it was is obviously based on the one character, Oswald. He has his rotating regular cast, but originally that series was supposed to be about Oswald. He's a scribe, and he's supposed to be like listening to other characters, and they're telling him their stories, and he's supposed to be transcribing them. So he's telling you their stories.
Right.
It eventually got taken over by Oswald, and the story became his. I don't know how that happened. He just moved in, and now it's his. So but I don't know if you've ever had a character do that to you. But
yeah, I have.
Exactly. So yeah, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's how I work that. So there are always new characters coming in because I'm always telling these other stories, other than just Oswald's. He's finding all these other stories that are told.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So all right. Well, my question then is, because you've had this here for so long, you've been running this series. Both series have been parallel, right? You've been running the same. Have they?
No.
Tall Tales is first, and then Oswald.
Oswald came second. Yeah.
Okay.
Came later on.
So how long has Oswald been running for?
Probably 94, 95. And I originally started it as a prose. So it was just all prose.
Okay.
So probably for the first 10 years or so, it was all prose, maybe longer even.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, it was all prose. I got about maybe 30 short stories right now, just based on the character. Okay. And then I met this artist. I met Jade Gonzalez. That's the artist on that series. I met her online because I was just looking to have. I needed some spot illustrations for the stories because I would have just have illustrations in the stories. So I contacted her. I said, hey, how much for illustrations or whatever. She sent me a price on comic pages, which at the time, my jaw hit the ground, and I was like, and I just happened to have a windfall of cash. Yeah. Okay, so I had about $5,000, and it was a windfall. I mean, this was just literally mad money, right? Most normal people would go on vacation, save it for a rainy day, do something else. I said I could do a comic book, because I'm insane, right? I'm an independent publisher. Yeah, so I hired her, and we've been rolling strong for, I think, I don't know, almost 11 years now. We're almost 1,000 pages in.
Wow. Okay. How often? I mean, between the two series, so you're basically doing four issues a year. You're doing two.
Yeah,
it comes to about like doing a quarterly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, if my
rotate-
schedule works out the
Yeah.
way it's supposed to, I about 2 issues a year.
right.
Yeah.
Well, you're
Yeah.
doing 2 issues a year, and then JD with Oswald is doing two issues. You're basically, pumping out of that household, 4 issues of material a year, right?
Well,
I think you might be doing
Oswald,
more, right?
yeah, Oswald's more like 4 issues a year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Wow. And that makes
Yeah.
it really,
Well,
yeah.
because he doesn't have to draw it, so.
Yeah. I got you.
I got the easy part.
Yeah,
got
he has got the easy part.
I do letter though. I do letter.
Yes.
You
Yes.
do oh, what do you use?
Well, I use Photoshop, and I'm using what is that? The Joe Kubert font.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
And I use Illustrator to letter
Mhm.
my books, and I use a font
Sure.
called Back Issues.
Oh, yeah, back issues. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with
I
that.
think that was from Comicraft. I think. I don't
or
remember.
or blot or blam blot or whatever.
Oh, yes, I think it might be Blambot.
Yeah,
I
because
think
I-
it might
I-
be that one. Yeah,
I picked up
but
all
it's
the free
it's
stuff.
called Back Issues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done
Uh-huh.
that. I'm using Clip Studio Paint
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
to assemble everything, the line art, and then do my coloring and my lettering
Right.
in there.
Mm.
And that works. I scan you scan this. You do the same thing. You scan in Photoshop, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
You scan in Photoshop. I don't scan into Photoshop. I just scan it as JPEGs, okay? And then I will run it through. Now I'm in my new computer.
Oh,
I have
okay.
one from 2010 or 2009 that still runs my old Toon Boom Studio
Oh.
of version 4.5, and I run my what I do is I run it. I do my high contrast. I run it through as line art to tune on Toon Boom, and then it just smooths it down just a bit. It fills in a lot,
Right.
and then I'll put it as a PNG,
Right.
and then I'll take that and then put that from that computer into this one here for Clip Studio Paint, and then I'll put it in, and then I'll start painting with that, assembling the panels and doing my painting in there. I can't do it all on one because I'm not going to buy Photoshop. I've got an older one over there that's from 2005,
Right.
and that has Photoshop 5.5 in there.
Well, right. Yeah. It's like I think I have Photoshop 7. It's like that's the Photoshop I used back in school.
Right. There you go.
But no, Clip Studio Paint. I'm just so used to the process that I use that I have already that I just didn't have the brain power to learn another program. But from what I've seen, Clip Studio Paint is good for it's made specifically for this.
Mm-hmm.
For putting together comic book work and doing some animation on it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're all in one place.
Yeah. Well, basically, the Toon Boom Studio, they stopped using it. It's Harmony now, and basically it's all puppetry.
Right. Yeah.
And it is just too, it's too weird and too. I just don't want to do it anymore. I'm learning. I will learn new programs like with Clip Studio Paint and understanding how to use that. But I am not going to learn how to do all that calibrations to put sheet. I do flat colors. Okay. I paint with flat. So, I'm doing it like your 1940s, 1950s, You know, I'm using the this, you know, maybe 32 to 40 colors as your base thing, and I'll use the you know, the Joe Simon and Jack Kirby color combinations. You know, where you got purple sidewalks, you know, and you know, and green buildings. You know, anything that will focus on you know, on your imagery and direct your eye to the panel. That's what I do. But I'm not trying to be super realistic in any way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's like because when I color work, I mean, especially recent. I mean, when we went in lockdown back in March, I decided to use the time to learn how to like digitally color comics correctly. You know, and yeah, it required a completely different mindset for that. You know, it's like using simpler colors, more limited colors, knowing, you know, like knowing how to use color combinations to focus the eye. You know, yeah, it's whatever it takes to make the page look right.
Yeah. Well, you know, when JD, when you're thinking your stories, are you thinking color in terms of emotion and about what kind of thing that you? I know you know, you want to hand it over to the artist, but you've got to have something, you know, in your mind. I mean, sometimes you're just seeing red, you know, or whatever, what have you, you know. I mean,
it's funny because I just don't like it, because I've done it so long and I've worked with so many different people, right? That it's like, you know, I like I try to mitigate my expectations. You know what I mean? I try to, you know, I'm like, all right, listen, I'm gonna give this to them, right? And I'm like, and I'm gonna get back what I get back. You understand? And I look at it, and like I said, I mean, like 99 times out of 100, I'm getting back better than what I was expecting.
I mean,
you know, it's very
something
it's very
has
rare.
to be really wrong,
right?
for him
Something has to be
to mention it.
right.
Okay.
That's like, oh, you need to change this. Yeah.
Like I'll give you an example. This one isn't with Daphne, it was with Tall Tales, right? So I have a race of characters and they're called Calcians, and I had described them as teddy bear hamsters, right?
Okay.
So I was like, they're kind of like teddy bear hamsters. They look like, you know, they're like warrior mage teddy bear hamsters that live in Central Park, right? And then my artist comes back and she gives me bears. So, so she got teddy bear. She missed hamster.
Yeah, but
so
also,
I got back bear.
Yeah, but also it's like there might be some kind of like language.
Oh yeah, her main language is Spanish.
On there. Yeah.
But she's actually very good at English. And but what's funny is like that happened, and I was just like, okay, that's fine, that works. You understand? That it was like it worked. So I was just like, okay, that's fine. You know, I wasn't gonna sit there and be like, no, change, no. I let that. You know,
but here's the weird thing though. So she changes the way these characters look. So, you know, because of this mistake, so he leaves it in the comic. So then it's like he does a short story that he's getting illustrations from all of us, from a whole bunch of different artists. And the thing is though, that so I figure it's like, well, if this is the way the characters are being established in the comic, I better, you know, imitate that. And JD goes, no, do not imitate her style. Draw the characters the way you originally draw them, because technically I was the one that originally designed these Calcian characters. So, and you know, I know what a teddy bear hamster looks like.
Right.
So if you see her version, same story. If you see her version and my version in the same book, they look like completely different characters, but they're the same characters. It's just that he wants all his artists to be individual, as opposed to like following a character sheet or something. You know, it's like.
Well, yeah, and that's great, because there is so much of like in today's animation, for example, there are no individual artists as they used to be because everything is a puppet.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, it's all manipulated. It's all one design. But even if you try to handle it, you're still just lifting things up and just positioning like that. Whereas in the old days, each animator had a particular strength, and you could tell who was holding the pencil at the time.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, what was that? Oh, it was Little Nemo in Slumberland. That
Yeah.
where it's like they had all, like where you could literally tell, like, oh, this is where Mobius did the animation. This is where Mike Poog did the animation.
Yeah.
There was like a whole bunch of other ones, and we were just like, oh, you could tell who did what as the scene came in. Like, but even at when, like, I'm thinking of Beauty and the Beast, the original animated version,
Right.
and like you can tell when Glenn Keane was animating and when someone else was animating.
Right.
And it's like now you don't see that subtlety anymore.
No. Well, first of all, you're not going to see the hand drawing at all.
Right. Yeah.
But it's also, Dollars to Donuts, you're going to be seeing motion capture.
Yeah.
Right.
Versus something. I mean, like, for example, a friend of mine who, Eric Goldberg did the genie in Aladdin, and you can tell his stuff right away. You could. His stuff was amazing, which is not very Glenn Keane-ish at all. They're two different styles, and and so and even you go back to the 30s and 40s, those animators, they all had their own particular points of view because they didn't go to animation school. They were animators. They were making it up as they went along. So that's, they weren't trying to copy. And I understand model sheets very much, but still within the context of creative, of expression, of being able to do something, you can't just be a machine. Otherwise, why bother? And that's what's happened.
Right.
So anyway, with your stories, I wanted to get to how you keep it fresh, because we know what the work is, but it's been going on for so long. How do you keep it fresh for you? I mean, that's first. I mean, if you have brand new audiences, every 5 to 6 years, well, it'll be something different for them. But for you, how do you keep it going? Why? What do you do? What elements do you put in? And since Jd, you were the one writing it first, what do you do?
Well, and see, here's the thing. The first volume. Let me just pull this up. This thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's 20 issues, right? But it probably took us 18 to 20 years to complete.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we kept it fresh, because we're not on top of it. It's not a day in, day out thing. I mean, I know now it kind of is, but the thing is like, even between that volume and the second series, well, the second arc that we're working on now, I probably took 2 years off, and then it took me another 2 years to write that. So, and I just wrote the thing. Well, I didn't actually write it straight. I wrote it halfway, and then I started working on something else, and then I came back and I wrote the other half. And then I finally handed it to Daphne, and she started working on it, probably a couple years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how we do a lot of work in between, Like, I know for Oswald, it stays fresh for me because the stories are constantly changing. Because they're like a limited series. It'll be 4 issues, 8 issues, whatever it is. But it's that story, and it's different than all the other stories.
Right.
It's just when, there's an overarching plot, that gets touched on. But for the most part, they're very different, the stories. So that's basically how I keep that fresh.
I mean, it's like, for me, it's Well, it's like it's what I do is I try to focus on one part, like okay, so I'm going to concentrate on just doing the layouts for this, and then I finish the layouts, and then for a little bit I do something else. Like in between Tall Tales, I had another comic that I was kind of like fussing with. Like Tall Tales is my work comic, and this other comic that I was doing was my hobby comic. You know, it's like, oh, so what do you do for fun, right?
Yeah.
And that comic I'm finally putting out in January. It's called Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, because I figured it's like, well, you know, maybe instead of like continuing to fuss with it, I probably should just kick it out into the world finally. You know, so it's kind of like, so I just, you know, and then it's like, and if I wasn't working on that, then it's like, oh, I'm just like doodling on other things or just doing other things kind of like in between. So I'm not working on a book on a full stretch, which I guess depending on who you talk to, maybe is not really a good thing. I don't know. But then it's like when I go back to doing, you know, when I go back to my layouts and then convert them to pencil, you know, to tighter pencils, and then it's like I have a fresher mind on it. And then it's like I'm able to concentrate on the pencils, and then once I'm done with the pencils, then I do that whole roundabout again, and then I go back to inking, and then again it's like, okay, now I'm fresh, and you know, I can concentrate on the inking, because the worst thing that happens is if I'm trying to like really push a book through and it does not work. I mean, I mean, it's like there are in that 20 issues in that book. I mean, JD can pick out the scenes where it's like, so what was going through your head here? It's like, oh, you were rushing here. You know, it's like he can literally point out that timeline. So I'm trying to avoid that now. But it's like, okay, it's like, look, the books are getting done regardless. So, you know, I'm not Arthur Adams and I'm not Mike Mignola. So, you know, it's getting done when it gets done.
Because we've had the conversation as to whether or not are we producing product or are we making art. Right. So that's the conversation that we had. You know, are we making product or are we making art? And it's just like, for me, I'd rather make art than product.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, take your time. If you gotta take your time.
You know, because I would rather, I would rather put out work that I can look back on and go, oh, this still holds up, you know. And, you know, and a lot of, you know, in spite of, you know, the hiccups, you know, that those first 20 issues still hold up. And, you know, and it's like, and that's what, like, I don't want to look back at my artwork and cringe, you know. It's like I can appreciate that. It's like, okay, I was this age when I did these first pages. You know, it's like we don't really get our groove until the fourth issue into that trade. And that's the funny thing, because like sometimes we talk about, oh, if only, you know, we didn't put out annuals back in the day. But at the same time, we would have had a completely different book if we did that, if we pushed it through, because, you know, I progressed. JD's story progressed differently as that time expanded. So yeah, if we had rushed it through, I don't think it would have been as satisfying to look back on it, because it would have been just something different.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing is, as Frank Thomas, you know, or Milt Kahl or any of those old classic animators from Disney say, you know, remember, oh no, it was your scenes are up there forever. You know, and so it's especially now with the internet, every doodle that you put up there it's gone, it's there. Once it's out there, it's floating. You know, there's going to be and it's not as bad like bad Xerox copies. You know, the 15th time that it's and sent out, it's still going to be just the same as what you did. So you got to be really careful about what you're doing, and so especially if you're only you could get a reputation for just cranking it out. You know, you could be, you could be a Mr. Hack, and just crank it out.
Yeah,
That's just awful.
right. I mean, and also like a part of it too. I mean, not for nothing. We're in a pretty unusual situation that allows us to take our time with this. I mean,
Right.
the comics do not pay the bills.
Right.
So there's no pressure for us to have to crank these out because, oh my God, if we don't crank these out, we don't get paid.
Right.
Huh?
You don't get to eat.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, seriously. It's like our lifestyle does not depend on it coming out, being cranked out. So we can afford to take the time that we need for it. I mean, it's like I can understand. I mean, it's like why there are artists who feel like they do need to crank out stuff. I mean, it's like if your family is being fed on that artwork, it's got to go.
Yeah.
So it's like it's easy to be poo-poo, but there's a reality behind it. And it's like, and I just want to be transparent that it's like, we're able to do this because we've set up our life in a way where we can, and it's not something everybody has the luxury to do.
No, and you're not trying to do a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo campaign in order to pay the mortgage.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're not doing that. You're trying to go that route.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's great to have that so that you know who is your supporters.
Right.
And that you want to do that. And
right.
And so, but in this case, for you, for your work, you are out there with your own websites. You are visiting. You're doing shows, right? But conventions when they
come back, sure.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
To keep doing that, and I can't even imagine doing that again because when my wife and I were doing writing mystery novels, we would go to the four or five conventions a year, schlepping our books over there and doing this and that, and setting up and doing all that, and that was when we were in our 40s. There's no way I'm going to do that now.
I mean, there are limitations. There are. We have to be realistic with it. We're not 21 years old either.
Exactly. I know for myself when it comes down to doing Kickstarters, because I do a lot of them. Right?
Okay.
So I get one completed, I fulfill it, and then I'm on to the next one. Right. So I'm just like boom, 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 because I have a lot of content.
Right.
But that money all goes to pay for the next, for more content. That's all I use it for.
Right.
It's my very expensive hobby is what it is. I'm just trying to get it to a point where the hobby is paying for itself.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not taking cash out of my own pocket, which I've done for years. But it's getting to a point where it's just paying for itself. And what I want to do is get it to a point where I can hire other artists to help out because, even though I'm 1,000 pages in, I probably got another 1,500 pages worth of story. So, I want to get it out. I made a promise to myself. I'm 52, or I'll be 52 in November. And I kind of made a promise to myself that by 55, I'll be done writing. Okay? I'll be done writing the series. That doesn't necessarily mean I'll be done with the series, but I'll be done writing it. so then I can move on to write something else. Because it just takes up all of my time between the Oswald Chronicles and Tall Tales. And I've spent the last 2 or 3 years, I haven't touched I haven't worked on a Tall Tale script.
Right.
She's working on issue 6. I figure when she starts working on issue 7, at some point around there, I have to really start looking at it again because I'll go back and reread everything, lay out some proper points. I know where the story is going and I know how it ends.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna have to go in and really work on that. And what's funny is, for the third arc, which would be the final arc, originally I was like, yeah, we're gonna make it this huge, massive epic. It's gonna be 30 issues.
Oh boy.
Now I'm like, no, we're gonna end this sucker in 12.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's gonna be a little bit longer than the current arc, but it's gonna be shorter than the first arc. So,
right. Well, but at least when you're looking at what you've done, even you could see the beginnings. You still have something that you go and say, hey, I feel good about this, because I mean, everybody looks back and says, I could have done better. I could have. Yeah, but you know what? If you give 100% of your effort, then you got to accept what it is. You just move on to the next one, and that you get better and you get more developed, and then you could start seeing. And then sometimes you go back and you say, that wasn't that bad.
Right. That's exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, also it's like, because it was something that Dave Sim had said, that it's like, worry about it in the next issue.
Yeah.
It's like, keep it moving. It's like, don't fuss. It's like, look, you did what you could, just keep it moving.
Right.
And there's a lot of creators out there who it's like they spend all their time fussing on a first issue and they never get to a second one.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I know that. I know what happens to when that sort of thing, because it's the procrastination of, oh my God, it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. You just but you have to, I don't know, perfection just gets in the way of accomplishment.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, that's all. That's basically what it is. You just do it. You move it out, and you just go. And then the next time you do, well, I can jump. I can leap higher.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, and then what happens? Okay, so this new comic that I'm working on, Ego Raven, right?
Yeah.
So this is a comic. It's just like it started off as just a BS side project for me to just do something different while everything else is still percolating.
Yeah.
And I finally decided after all these years, okay, you know what? Let's finally put this out. It's like, let's stop being a hobby. Let's get this thing on Kickstarter and do it. So I'm just waiting for Kickstarter to approve the campaign so I can have my pre-launch page up and start like hustling it for the next 3 months, because it premieres in January. The campaign goes live in January.
Right.
And what's funny is like the second that happened, like the second that became a reality, it's like, okay, the Kickstarter is scheduled. I have my first issue ready to go. I have a second issue. I just need to color. And then my brain goes, oh, good. Now we have room for another project. And I'm like, wait, what are you doing? So it's like, I kind of have, so it's like, so that's like now the other thing. So it's like, so when I'm doing the circle, so it's like, so I had to put all that down on paper and then put that aside. So it's like, now I can, go back and do the stuff I actually have to get done.
Right.
And see what happens there. But it's like, really another one.
Well, I know that. I mean, I've got my 2 series I've got the Snuffy and Zoe a series, but I also have the Nicky Nardson Mega Moose series, and they're all self-contained stories, But with the younger ones, I'm not going to be trying to pump one out a year, because kids at the age of 4 to 7, they'll look at the same book over and over forever. I'm not going to do that. And so I got 2 stories there. I want to kind of focus on Mega Moose, because it's about, a kid, a bullied nerd, in surviving school, and there's a lot. I mean, basically it's, you have all kinds of things of just, dealing with powers and whatnot and becoming that. And then, they're all like 12 to 16 page stories in the first book. And that's I'm going to maintain that, but it's also like they're chapters in his life, because you build on that. but you don't have to read everything to know
Right.
what, they're all entry level stories,
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So, I'm hoping that that we'll be able to fulfill the campaign. I don't know what I'll do if I don't. So,
Oh, I'm sure you'll be fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
We still, you still have you still have some time. So
yeah, I've got about 3 weeks,
yeah.
in that, and so we'll see we'll see what happens.
Uh-huh.
There's always, there's always, but it's interesting that your market, your readership is, from what, about 13, 15 up.
Yeah, about 13 up. Yeah.
Well, the way I like to phrase it is like if they can watch Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
Yeah.
movies, then this is fine for them.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
figuring usually around 11 and up,
Okay.
10, 11 and up.
Yeah.
So that's usually how I look at it.
Yeah. Because you know what it is, like both of us were like really precocious readers.
Okay.
So so we don't want to like completely dismiss any like younger ages that might be more advanced readers.
Right.
But I mean, if you're talking like strict marketing, then I would say, yeah, it's like 12, 13 and up. That's
Yeah, because you can always have those. You have bleed.
Yeah.
Right.
You have, at least from the starting point.
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone who's like, oh boy, like I want to do that because I want to.
Right.
Because you always get kids who are very, they're always reading above their level,
Mhm.
and that's unusual
Right.
for the most part.
Yeah.
Even 50, 60, 70 years ago,
Yeah.
Right.
but anyway, that's it's the idea of as long as you still have the energy, not the energy, but the
No, the energy.
combination. It basically, yeah, it is. Sitting at the desk, and especially the physicality
Yeah.
of drawing. Sometimes
Yeah.
Fred breaks in like me.
Yeah.
So I don't. That's why I'm not doing animation. I did it, and I just can't do it anymore because there's
Right.
too much that goes into it. But
Yeah.
the enthusiasm for storytelling and creating, keeping it alive and keeping it fresh for you.
Right.
You gotta find something new about, or a shade about this character, something that isn't just personal to you. It also has to it has to be something that the readers can come in, and it's not
Right.
just the monster of the issue.
Right.
There has to be something else that is being revealed.
Right.
So I mean, can you just? I mean, we're getting close to. Well, we're about the hour mark and past that. Just to kind of close it off, like can you say something that you started off with, and what are your major characters that that there been a shift that suddenly put you into a direction or development, or revealed something that made it sparked you to say, hey, I could take this some more. It was kind of like, okay, I'm going with this, that you hadn't started with, or is there?
Wow.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, that one's kind of rough because it's like with Oswald, I
Mhm.
started in the middle, right? Like a genius. I didn't start at the beginning, the way most smart people do. I started in the middle and I started working out to the edges. And not only did I work out to the edges, I started bouncing around in his timeline.
Okay.
So that's how I knew it was a much bigger story, because I was
Okay.
bouncing around in that timeline kind of hard. Now with Tall Tales though, I started that was 18, 19 years old.
Mhm.
And, I was reading, I was reading all kinds of science fiction and fantasy novels. I was reading Sword of Shannara. I was reading I forgot the name, but there's all these really thick books,
Yeah.
right? And so they were all epics. So the epic came very, like, it just came to me, and it was just like, oh well, of course it's gonna last forever. So it was one of those things where it's just like, okay, let's just it'll go as long as it goes. And yeah, that's the only thing is now I'm like, maybe I should have made this a little briefer. But those 20 issues I think hold up, and the next 8 issues definitely hold up, and I think the next 12 issues definitely hold up beyond that. So yeah, but pushing it along, I mean, it's never been a problem.
Oh no.
Yeah, just make. Yeah, I dropped out a little.
No,
Yeah, you dropped.
here.
Oh, you on my end you dropped out a bit, so I was a little concerned because then it's like, wait, that's going to affect me.
No. I heard you, and
Oh, okay, all right.
just
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those things where these things were designed to be a little bit longer, so they are.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I design something to be like small.
Right. Yeah. The small is the challenge for him.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
You asked me to write a 4-page story, I'm going to give you dirty looks.
Well, we're doing an 8-page story for something. It hasn't been announced yet, so I'm not going to go into detail. But it was an 8-page story that we're working on, and for JD, that was a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because originally it was supposed to be 4 pages. I was like, come on, give me 8.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's like just a tad,
I can and many times I'll cut, because I thought, like a 20-page story. I said, I'll be able to fill that in with, and I said, no, there's not enough there. I cut 4 pages off and say, hey, listen, do enough, and then make it all prime. Don't, and that's something that you have to kill your little darling sometime.
Yeah. No, for real.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I go through a heavy edit process before I hand off a script. So, usually the fat that I cut off, I try to leave just the meat of the story. So and even then it ends up being, sizable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
so
we're not fans of stretching stuff out for the sake of it. Yeah.
No. When I
Yeah.
Well,
this has been great.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. Have you got any kind of parting words for posterity here?
Perfection is impossible, and just keep it moving. It's like don't think too hard about it. If you want to do a book, anything, if you want to, a comic, just do it. Just do it. Don't think too hard. Don't think too hard, or else you're just going to end up paralyzed and then regretting it later. Yeah.
I mean, just follow. Do the things you want to do. Don't do the things that you think you should do.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do. It's very different. Because you'll have people telling you, oh, you should do this and you should do that. This will sell better. This will sell better than that. But you may be miserable doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, so I would always advise, do the story you want to tell.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Do what you enjoy.
I'll give you. I will second and third that, because I've all of the stuff that I've had the most fun with, I was left alone. I mean, all the stuff that people are telling me, hey, I like that.
Yeah.
They left me alone. So when you have a chance and you just do it, and just do it for yourself, and then you've only got some, and even if nobody else likes it, at least you enjoyed it. You got to enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Don't enjoy the process, it's not worth it. I mean,
don't fear the audience of one.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really weird, but really, don't fear the audience of one. If you really want to do this story, then you'll do it regardless.
Well, thank you very much, Daphne and JD. I'm very glad that we were able to get together, and I wish everybody else in the reruns and those who have been looking, just enjoy this video, and go check out we'll say the Oswald Chronicles and Tall Tales, and John the Animator comics. So Listen, next time we'll see you then. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.